you broke the radio.
Seriously? Even when he's not driving, he's backing into things. This day just keeps getting more expensive.
Throw them off. They won't know what's going on.
While fans were busy cheering on their favorite Storage Wars bidder,
Hey, stop! Get a good look! Woo!
50 where? 50 there. 50. Don't let your way, Brandy. You got it for $100, Brandy. Brandy.
Jarrod Schulz was quietly building a very different story behind the scenes. The relationship was already over.
As a mother, I have two goals. Make sure that the college money doesn't turn into bail money, and to make sure that Cameron doesn't turn out like Jarrod.
The legal trouble was already brewing, and by the time anyone found out, it was too late to look away. So what really led to the arrest that shook his reputation to its core? And is there any coming back from where things stand right now? Join us as we find out why things aren't looking good for Jarrod Schulz. The pattern that started long before the cameras. There is a version of Jarrod Schulz that most Storage Wars fans thought they knew. The scrappy young gun who argued with Brandy on camera, made questionable auction decisions, and somehow made all of it entertaining for 12 straight seasons. This was the side that the creators of Storage Wars sold A and E fans. But there was a different side, a side that was out there before the show, came back during the show, and eventually could not be denied once the show was over. It began back in 1997, when only a few people knew his name. Jarrod was in his early 20s during the first month of that year when he was charged with felony possession of a controlled substance, which, in this case, was methamphetamine. He admitted to the crime and was sentenced to serve 60 days in jail. Most people acquainted with him at the time must have felt it would be an eye-opener for him. However, only 1 week later, he was arrested again. In this case, he was driving drunk and in possession of narcotics intended for transport. The judge presiding over this case did not want anything other than strict punishment, especially given that the young man had just served time for the same crime. According to what a source told Reality Weekly in 2012, Jarrod was never a bad guy. He was only following an extremely dangerous path, and drugs controlled all the decisions that led him there. According to reports, it was when he sat among those individuals accused of committing heinous acts in that prison that things began to make sense. His life had begun to take a clear direction, and he did not want to follow it any further. By the time he left prison, it was evident that he had made up his mind to change his life seriously. He established himself as a reputable man through resale and thrift. He found Brandy Passante. He created a new life for himself that had no connection at all to the past that led him into that prison. There was no audience watching that could have guessed how much effort went into maintaining that separation or what could occur if the pressure ever became too much to bear. Because the thing about patterns that are suppressed rather than resolved is that they wait. They do not disappear. And by 2018, that particular pattern was beginning to assemble in a way that the cameras were not capturing. The secret that changed how everything looked. Jarrod and Brandy were the heart of Storage Wars for 12 seasons, not due to their exceptional bidding skills or the fact that they made for the most entertaining cast members. They were simply relatable as a couple running a business, raising 2 kids, bickering, and doing their best to keep it all together while starring on television for many seasons. This feeling of authenticity formed the base of everything else created around these 2 individuals. This explains why the bombshell that dropped in April of 2021, when Storage Wars returned for its 13th season, was such an earth-shattering moment for long-term viewers of the series. Brandy, sitting before the camera during the premiere episode of Season 13, said something that stopped a lot of people mid-sentence. She was not with Jarrod anymore. She had ended the relationship after they completed filming Season 12. Season 12 debuted in November 2018. The audience was hearing about a breakup that had happened nearly 3 years earlier. They had been watching the show, following social media, filling in the ambiguous gaps with the assumption that nothing fundamental had changed, while the relationship had already been over for years. The social media posts that could be read multiple ways had been read the wrong way. The absence of information had functioned as passive confirmation that everything was fine. Unfortunately for the two stars involved, everything was far from okay at this point. Of course, breakups happen all the time. But in this specific case, the thing that made the difference was what happened right after it, as well as the consequences that followed over the next several years. Because 2019, the first full year after the relationship ended, was the year the legal trouble quietly started again. And almost nobody was paying attention yet. The charge, nobody noticed. 1 year later, as the TV series was still not airing and there was nobody who knew what had happened, an event occurred at Lake Forest that barely made waves in the media. In July 2019, Jarrod was arrested for resisting an officer during an incident in the same area where he lived for several years. The exact details about this particular incident were not revealed publicly. This case seemed to have passed like that, without receiving many people's attention. But it lingered around as it remained pending in the court process of Orange County. For most of the fans of Jarrod Schulz in 2019, this was nothing much to take note of. But when taken into account in light of everything else that has occurred prior to it, it certainly did not amount to a minor occurrence. It was the first indication that the pressures of the post-show, post-relationship era were yielding the same results as the pressures he had faced 2 decades ago during his 20s. Same general trend in terms of a stressed individual who was unable to resolve their problems and ended up getting themselves in trouble because of it. The arrests in 1997 took place in the midst of an unstable time for him personally. This 2019 arrest was no different, except that it had been publicized. No more shows, no more relationships. The persona he had cultivated over the course of 12 seasons on television now lacked an outlet. This resisting an officer charge was not even the most troubling issue, because, in 2021, something even more serious occurred. The night everything became public. On the 30th of April, 2021, Brandy Passante went to a bar in Lake Forest, California, accompanied by friends. It was a normal night out. However, Jarrod appeared in the bar shortly after. According to law enforcement, who talked to TMZ about the incident, there ensued an exchange between the two that led to arguments. She told him to leave, but he refused. In the process of the heated argument, he allegedly pushed her on 2 occasions as he yelled at her and those accompanying her. A call to the police was placed, and when they showed up at the bar, Jarrod had left. She filed a report against him. A few days later, he was contacted by the cops and questioned. However, he had nothing but denial regarding his claims. His story did not convince the Orange County District Attorney's Office. Jarrod Schulz received the formal misdemeanor charge for 1 count of domestic violence battery against Jane Doe on May 16, 2021. The defendant rejected all accusations put forward against him and stated that he had no intentions to take a plea deal unless it involved a total dismissal of the charge. He pleaded not guilty. Moreover, witness testimonies did not fully coincide either. As CinemaBlend reported in their coverage back in August of 2021, witnesses gave contradictory accounts regarding the situation of what happened that night. Some claimed there was merely a bump against his shoulder rather than an intentional push. The report made by the police mentioned no physical consequences of that event left on Brandy. It did not affect the decision to file the charges against Jarrod. However, it is still part of the whole story. In addition, when A&E was informed of the charges, they started a comprehensive investigation into whether Jarrod would continue participating in the reality show or not. As industry insiders mentioned, his situation remained unclear until the network completed its investigation. Similarly, Brandy failed to give a statement or have an interview regarding what happened between her and Jarrod. Instead, she took to her social media account in October 2021, which was Domestic Violence Awareness Month, with the following message on Instagram: "Domestic violence does not discriminate based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, or social class." Brandy did not add details to that statement or mention Jarrod, and she did not need to do so. Everyone who followed her social media accounts knew what was going on. For a very long time, Brandy had been carrying something inside of her. Now, slowly but surely, she was able to release herself from that burden. However, things were becoming much more difficult for Jarrod, and this time, the legal situation stopped looking like isolated incidents and started looking like something else entirely. When the cases started stacking. Towards the end of 2021, Schulz was arrested for a driving under influence with blood alcohol content of 0.08% or higher. Take a second to process the timeline there. In addition to the resisting an officer charge that occurred back in 2019, Schulz still faced charges of domestic battery that took place in May of 2021. And right on the heels of the former charge, in the same year as that incident, a driving under influence charge was also thrown into the mix. Now try to picture what that was really like for Schulz. 3 different incidents, 3 different charges, all 3 open at once, all 3 going through the same judicial system at once, all 3 requiring the involvement of lawyers, court dates, and stress that doesn't just turn off after the hearing is done. No time to catch your breath, no break between one case finishing and another starting up. Everything happened at once, and at the center of it all, Schulz already lost everything from the relationship to the job to the persona he'd built over the course of 12 years. For anyone paying close enough attention, the driving under influence incident of 2021 was far from seeming like a poor decision. Instead, it seemed like a cycle that was repeating itself again. For example, there was the incident with the driving under influence back in 1997, when everything had proceeded very similarly. There was a first charge, followed by a second charge that had come even before the first one had been solved. Different substances were involved, and different circumstances were there, but the progression itself was rather similar to what it had been previously. The most terrible part about this similarity is that while back then he was an unknown young man who was only in his early 20s and had no public persona at all. Now in 2021, he already had a charge of battery, and season 13 was airing. The resolution of A&E's investigation into whether or not Jarrod should be allowed to continue working with the show came not from any kind of official statement, but rather in his conspicuous absence from season 14. There was no goodbye, no explanation, and no episode devoted to addressing the change in the program. Storage wars continued on without him. The fans who had been watching him since 2010 were left without a proper farewell. They only received an empty space where he used to occupy. But the legal cases did not disappear along with his television career. They kept moving through the court system, slowly and without much public attention, toward a conclusion that would take years to arrive. So what happened when all 3 cases finally came to a head? The trial that the cameras missed. As soon as the picture began to take shape in regards to Jarrod's legal situation, it didn't look good at all. All 3 of the criminal complaints, resisting an officer in 2019, battery in 2021, and the DUI in 2021, were to be tried simultaneously during a combined jury trial. First, it was scheduled to occur on June 20, 2023, and later delayed to July. The battery case alone had a pre-trial hearing scheduled for July 18th, with the jury trial following on July 24th. Pre-trial hearings were to be held on the driving under influence and resisting an officer cases on the same day. All of Jarrod's legal troubles had reached a head, but all the while, he maintained his silence. Nothing more ever came from all this attention. The cameras that previously reported the news surrounding the charges, arrests, court hearings, and scheduled trials became silent. The websites which initially broke the stories about Jarrod were no longer interested in reporting anything further about him. It is not known publicly whether there was any verdict announced after those hearings took place in July 2023, or whether Jarrod made a plea deal instead. Jarrod never said anything publicly regarding these cases. As for his social media accounts, they continued to be used less frequently until they stopped altogether. The latest post from Jarrod's Instagram account included a picture with Rochelle Beckman, his female companion who had first appeared in pictures dating back to 2021, but the picture was posted in 2022. Jarrod stopped using X, previously Twitter, in 2017. He likewise stopped being active on his Facebook account. It looked as if nothing else was left for Jarrod to say, as soon as he started facing legal issues. It turned out that this silence penetrated every other aspect of his life, too. The fallout that followed. As his career with television came to an end, and he became involved in legal matters that were taking up any remaining energy and time he might have had left, the life that Jarrod was trying to build away from storage wars started to face some troubles. He had been working on building a fashion line known as Outlaw Apparel, which was based on the image he was able to create for himself through the show. The rebellious and rough nature of the Young Guns character was popular, and the Outlaw Apparel was an extension of the image for those looking to buy into it past just watching television. By 2024, the domain of Outlaw Apparel site was available for sale on GoDaddy. Anyone attempting to access the site via an outdated link would be redirected to the page where the domain could be bought. Their social media handles were also inactive and had not been updated for years. There was no official announcement for their closure. Nothing was said about why they ceased operations. They simply folded up quietly. In addition, he also owned the Rush Bar and Grill at Lake Forest, California, a small neighborhood bar and grill providing him with his first brick-and-mortar business in the very neighborhood where he resided. As reported by their official website, Jarrod became the owner of this establishment in April 2019 and described himself as a self-made entrepreneur and a family man pursuing his next business adventure with the aim of establishing a good neighborhood bar. Whether the establishment is still in operation as of 2026 or not under Jarrod's ownership is unknown. What is known, however, is that it turned out to be his last professional venture during a time when all else was falling apart around him. Brandy, on the other hand, was going down a very different road. She came back to Storage Wars all the way up to Season 16 in 2025. She actively posted on social media. She talked about her private life openly, even showing herself in 2024 pictures with a new boyfriend, realtor Clifford Beaver. She somehow managed to pull herself through the same time when Jarrod saw everything falling to pieces. It is hard to overlook the contrast here, but there is a question that arises from it as well. A question that the public record alone cannot fully answer. Where things actually stand. The man who worked hard to build something for 12 years right in front of everyone else has been sitting back and watching that it fall apart ever since, in total silence. No goodbyes, no answers, not even a single apology. Just an easy fade out. Not everybody goes around declaring when they recover from a problem or struggle. Often, the narrative of someone's life may only be seen in terms of what was written down before it all fell silent. For Jarrod Schulz, that narrative does not look favorable. Only time will tell whether something more hopeful is being written somewhere else. For now, Jarrod Schulz remains silent on the matter. Do you think that Jarrod Schulz will have a comeback on TV in the future? Do you also feel that there is still something in this story that is not out in the open yet? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.